Do you know what regret tastes like? It's the metallic tang of blood in your throat when you're running in the dark. That's what's flooding my mouth right now, thick coppery, choking me as my lungs beg for air. The tunnel is alive. The walls sweat with condensation, dripping in a steady rhythm that sounds like footsteps too close behind me. Every flicker of the overhead lights feels like a cruel trick, like the darkness is winking at me, reminding me it owns this place. And the whispers, they're not in any language I've ever heard, but they coil around my ears, slide under my skin, and dig straight into the softest parts of my brain. I don't dare look back. I made that mistake once, and what I glimpsed wasn't something human eyes were meant to register. The shadow didn't move like a person. It didn't even move like an animal. It rippled, stretching too far, folding into itself like it was made of smoke and bone at the same time. Since then, I've kept my gaze locked forward, even though every nerve in my body screams to check if it's still following. The tunnel floor shifts under my feet, gravel, then slick concrete, then something that feels disturbingly soft, almost fleshy. I stumble, but force myself upright, because stopping here isn't an option. Not when every breath I take is matched by that rasping inhale from the darkness just a few steps behind me. You don't. No panic until the air itself turns against you. In here, oxygen feels poisoned, heavy, like the tunnel wants me to drown in it before whatever's chasing me can finish the job. My vision sparks at the edges, black static crawling in like a broken TV screen. And through it all, I hear something else, something worse than the whispers. A voice I recognize. My own voice, calling my name from up ahead. That's when the cold sinks into my bones, not the chill of damp air, but the deeper cold that only comes when you realize the rules don't work anymore. Time, space, logic, it all bends here. I should have never set foot inside. God, I should have listened. But if I don't tell you what I saw, someone else is going to walk in blind. And trust me, what's waiting in this tunnel doesn't let anyone leave twice. I should have listened. I should have never gone in earlier that day. Life looked exactly the way it always does in a small town that rarely makes the news. The kind of place where the biggest scandal is whether the mayor's kid skipped practice, or if the high school coach is secretly drinking from a flask during Friday night games. Everyone knows everyone. People wave when you pass on the street, even if they secretly can't stand you. That's just the rule here. Pretend everything's fine. I was stuck in the usual grind, half listening to a professor drone on about urban planning while doodling in my notebook, half watching the clock tick slower than should be legally possible. Outside, the sky was a perfect late autumn blue, the kind that tricks you into thinking the cold isn't biting your skin raw. I remember thinking how boring it all was. I remember wishing something interesting would happen. I should have kept my mouth shut. The tunnel was almost background noise in town life. It sat on the edge of the old railway tracks, half swallowed by weeds and rusting metal fences nobody cared enough to repair. To most people, it was just there. But if you mentioned it out loud, you'd see something shift in their faces. A tightening around the eyes, a quick subject change, a nervous laugh. I noticed it because I asked just once why the city didn't renovate it into a bike path. Old Mr. Bennett at the diner, who usually has an opinion about everything, put down his coffee and muttered, "Don't go in there, son. You don't come back the same." That was it. No explanation, no story, just that flat warning. And it wasn't just him. Whenever the tunnel came up, older folks had the same reaction. Stiff shoulders, silence, a shake of the head. The younger crowd treated it differently, like a dare, an urban legend to spice up parties. But still, nobody actually went in. Not really, except maybe that one kid. Tyler Martin. He was a year above me in school, cocky as hell, always chasing attention. One night, he joked he was going to walk straight through the tunnel and film it. He never showed up at class the next week. His parents said he'd moved in with relatives in another state, but everyone knew that was a lie. Nobody pressed for details. Nobody ever explained what happened to the last kid who went in. And maybe that's why I couldn't let it go. That night, over greasy pizza at my friend Caleb's place, I brought it up again. "You're seriously still thinking about that tunnel?" Caleb laughed, sauce dripping down his chin. "Man, it's just a bunch of old bricks and bad lighting. You want to get tetanus? Be my guest." "Then why does everyone act like it's cursed?" I asked. Caleb smirked, the kind of grin that meant trouble. "Tell you what, if you're so curious, let's check it out tomorrow, daylight. Nothing scary about a stupid hole in the ground." I wanted to play it cool, like I wasn't already leaning toward yes, but my silence gave me away. Caleb clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't chicken out now. You'll make me go alone, and then when I disappear, you'll have to feel guilty." We laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. The next afternoon, I walked past the tunnel on my way home. The closer I got, the quieter everything seemed to become. Even the birds that usually nested along the tracks were absent, as if the air itself had cleared them out. A dog from the neighborhood stood near the entrance, fur bristling, low growl vibrating in its throat. Its owner tugged on the leash, muttering apologies, but the animal wouldn't move until it was dragged away. I noticed other pets, 2 cats crouched low, tails puffed, eyes locked on the darkness inside. I should have turned back right then, but curiosity has teeth, and mine were already sunk in deep. Caleb wasn't the type to let things slide. Once he dared me, I knew I was locked in. By the next weekend, we were standing at the edge of town, sneakers crunching on gravel, the tunnel yawning before us like an open throat. It was bigger than I remembered. The arch of stone was cracked in places, smeared with decades of spray paint tags layered over one another until the colors bled into a chaotic mural. At first glance, it looked like the usual teenage rebellion. Initials inside hearts, crude swear words, some badly drawn anatomy. But the longer I stared, the more unsettling details appeared. There were symbols I didn't recognize, jagged spirals, looping eyes, crude stick figures with their heads blacked out. One phrase was repeated in red paint, scrawled over and over again. "Stay out." And then there were the marks. At first I thought it was just the erosion of brick and time, but no. Deep gouges scored the walls, parallel lines, too precise, too sharp, like claws dragged across stone. My stomach turned when I realized how high some of the marks were, far above where a person's hand could reach. "Okay, that's freaky," said Mariah, the third in our little group. She was supposed to be the voice of reason, but she was the one who'd brought a flashlight, which told me she didn't fully believe her own doubt. Caleb smirked and kicked an empty soda can into the tunnel. The metallic clang echoed, too loud, too long, as if the tunnel swallowed the sound and rolled it back at us. "Come on, it's just acoustics," he said, though I caught the way his grin twitched at the edges. We stepped closer. On the ground near the mouth of the tunnel were remnants. A busted-up BMX bike, its frame bent like it had been twisted by impossible force. A single sneaker, weathered by rain but still sitting neatly on its side. A child's backpack with one strap torn clean off. Mariah stopped dead. Nope, nope, I'm not doing this. She took a few steps back, shaking her head. I agreed to walk here, not whatever this is, scared. Caleb teased. Yeah, you should be too. I wanted to laugh, but my throat was dry, because she was right. There was something wrong with the air here. It had a charge, like the electric snap before a storm. My skin prickled. The fine hairs on my arms stood upright. I kept catching the faintest hum, low and steady, vibrating in my bones more than my ears, and the smell damp stone, rust, and something faintly metallic, like blood diluted in water. Caleb aimed the flashlight into the black, but it barely cut more than a few feet in. The beam seemed swallowed whole. Fine, Mariah muttered. You two idiots, go play ghost hunters. I'm staying here. If you're not back in 10 minutes, I'm calling the cops. She folded her arms, planted herself on the edge of the tracks, and turned her face away. That left Caleb and me alone, standing before the mouth of something that didn't feel like a tunnel at all, but a waiting throat, eager to swallow us whole. Ready? Caleb asked. His voice was light, but his grip on the flashlight was white-knuckled. I nodded. My feet moved, but I swear my brain screamed for me to turn and run. Each step forward felt heavier, like the air itself was pushing back. The hum grew louder, vibrating through my teeth now, and I realized it wasn't mechanical. It wasn't the sound of pipes or hidden wires. It was organic, a living sound. We crossed the threshold together, 2 steps inside. The light flickered. My chest tightened, and then just for a second, I felt it. A gaze. Not seen, not heard, but felt. The darkness wasn't empty. It wasn't passive. It was watching. That was the moment I realized that darkness was watching us. The first thing I noticed after stepping fully inside was how the world outside seemed to collapse into distance. Mariah's voice sharp, annoyed, calling after us echoed weirdly, stretched thin like it was coming through a broken speaker. The syllables bent in ways my brain couldn't follow. Caleb laughed nervously. She sounds like a chipmunk on helium. But I wasn't laughing, because when he spoke, his own words bounced back wrong. Too lower, heavier. Dragging like something enormous, was repeating them a beat late. We walked further, and the air thickened. Every inhale felt like breathing through wet fabric. Condensation dripped from the ceiling, plinking against my shoulders, and the stone walls sweated like living skin. My flashlight beam trembled across streaks of moss, but then it caught on something else. Markings, not spray paint this time. They were carved deep into the walls. Hundreds of overlapping symbols etched into the stone. Circles with slashes, spirals that folded inward until they vanished into pinpricks. Crooked human shapes with jagged limbs. My eyes kept snagging on one design, a spiral with an eye in the middle, always carved at head height, as if meant to look back at me no matter where I stood. Caleb stopped in front of one. This is art class, dropouts nightmare fuel, he muttered, but his voice wavered. We kept walking. The deeper we went, the stranger the acoustics became. Our footsteps didn't echo properly, they seemed to arrive a split second before we actually stepped. My own breathing circled back to me in whispers, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. And then, beneath the distortion, I heard it. A whisper that wasn't mine. Keep going, it breathed. I froze. My heart ricocheted against my ribs. Did you hear that? Caleb swung the flashlight around. Hear what? But then it came again, louder, closer. Keep going. This time it was his voice. My exact pitch, my tone, but I hadn't said it. Caleb chuckled uneasily. Okay, that's a nope. I wanted to agree. Every nerve in me screamed to turn back, to run out into the sunlight, to apologize to Mariah and never speak of this again. And yet, I didn't move, because something in those whispers hooked me. They weren't just repeating, they were predicting. Like the tunnel itself already knew what we were about to say. Caleb must have felt it too, because he whispered, what if it's just, like, echoes from ahead? Like sound bouncing in weird ways. But as if in reply, another voice slithered through the dark. Not mine, not his, not Mariah's. You shouldn't be here. It was hushed, feminine, but warped like two recordings overlapped out of sync. I tightened my grip on the flashlight. The beam jittered across the damp floor, catching on fragments of things left behind. A crumpled jacket, a toy car, another shoe. Always singles, never pairs, as if their owners had vanished mid-step. The air grew colder, and the hum I'd felt at the entrance pulsed louder now, throbbing through the floor beneath us. It reminded me of a heartbeat, except slower, deeper, wrong. Caleb muttered, screw this. 5 more minutes, then we turn around. But before I could answer, Mariah's voice floated in from the entrance, thin, high-pitched, carried strangely far. Guys, are you coming out? Relief rushed through me. At least she was still there. I called back, hold on. But the echo that returned wasn't hers. It was my own voice, whispering, hold on, except it didn't echo from behind. It came from ahead. Caleb stopped dead. His flashlight beam shook wildly against the wall. Did you? Yes, I hissed. We both listened. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, from somewhere ahead in the dark, footsteps. Slow, dragging, deliberate. Too heavy to be ours. Too steady to be an echo. The whispers rose again. Overlapping, a dozen voices layering on top of one another. Some repeated my words, some Caleb's, some murmured things neither of us had said yet. My chest constricted, and I thought if I'd turned back then, maybe I'd still have a choice, but I didn't. I tightened my grip on the flashlight, every instinct screaming at me to leave. Yet something stronger, stupider kept me rooted. Curiosity, or maybe the tunnel itself. Ahead, the dragging footsteps stopped. The beam of the flashlight flickered once, twice, and then, in the stuttering light, I thought I saw movement. Something shifting just beyond reach, waiting. That was when I knew we weren't alone anymore. At first, I thought it was Mariah. The figure stepped into the flashlight beam, with the hesitant shuffle of someone trying to be quiet. My heart lurched with relief, so sharp it nearly knocked me to my knees. Of course, she hadn't stayed outside. She'd followed us in, just like I knew she would, because she hated being left out of anything. Mariah. I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of the tension. You scared the hell out of me. The figure froze, just barely at the edge of the light. It didn't answer. Caleb exhaled shakily. Thank God, I thought. But then I noticed something wrong. Her head tilted. Too far, the movement jagged, like a video skipping frames. The light caught her face in fragments. A cheek, an eye, a smear of mouth. Every flicker showed a new angle that didn't match the last. And the smell guard, the smell it, seeped forward in waves. the stench of wet soil and rotting meat. Mariah. I tried again, but my voice was thinner this time. From behind us, at the tunnel's mouth, Mariah's voice echoed in, sharp and impatient. Why are you yelling? My stomach dropped. I looked at Caleb. His flashlight trembled in his grip. His face drained of color. She's outside, he whispered. The figure lurched closer. With each stagger, its limbs didn't bend quite right. Knees reversed, shoulders jerking like marionette strings tangled in knots. It came just far enough for me to see its face, if you could call it that. It was almost hers. Almost, but the skin sagged wrong, as though it had been stretched over a frame too large. The mouth twitched open, lips peeling back. No sound came, just the grinding crackle of cartilage trying to shift. And its eyes. They weren't eyes. They were pale discs, flat, empty, staring straight through me. I stepped back, my boots slipping against the damp stone. Caleb's breathing hitched like a sob. Say something, I begged. Please. The figure obeyed. Its jaw snapped down hard, bones crunching like splintering wood, and then it spoke in Mariah's voice. Not from its throat, though. From everywhere. The sound vibrated in the walls, in the ceiling, in my skull. Why are you yelling? Exactly what she'd said seconds before. Perfectly repeated, but hollow, like a recording played on broken speakers. Caleb swore and stumbled backward, nearly dropping his light. The figure tilted its head again. Faster this time, twitching in a series of unnatural angles. Then, slowly, it lifted its face fully into the beam of my flashlight. That's when it smiled, wide, too wide. And in that impossible grin, I saw the Mariah's teeth. Every crooked detail, every chip, exactly as I'd seen them 100 times when she laughed. Only this wasn't laughter, it was mimicry. A shudder ripped through me so violently I nearly fell. I wanted to run back, to sprint toward Mariah's real voice at the tunnel mouth. But the thought of passing this thing, brushing against its rotting stench, made bile rise in my throat. So instead, I turned and I ran deeper, because in that moment, the only thing more terrifying than what was ahead was what was already behind me. The air grew colder the deeper I went, as though every step down the tunnel pulled me further from the world I knew. My lungs burned, but the thing that had worn Mariah's face hadn't followed, at least, not yet. I kept moving, flashlight trembling in my grip, until the beam cut across something that didn't belong. A backpack. It was old, slumped against the slick stone wall, the canvas soaked through. The zipper teeth were broken, but when I pried it open, damp notebooks spilled out, pages curled and eaten away by mold. I tore one free, shining my light across the water-stained lines. Handwriting, sloppy, panicked. If anyone finds this, don't go further. Don't follow the lights. They don't lead out. My chest tightened. The scrawl ended mid-sentence. The ink smeared as though the writer had been dragged away mid-word. Beside the bag, I found a Fenolder model, screen spiderwebbed with cracks. It wouldn't power on, but the casing was burned, melted at the edges, like someone had held it against a blowtorch. And farther down, yellow tape, torn, frayed, half dissolved into the damp walls. I leaned closer, brushing dirt away. Stenciled letters peeked through. Police line, do not cross. Asterisk, I froze. Nobody had ever mentioned cops down here. Nobody had admitted they'd even tried to investigate. Yet here was proof. They'd been here before, and whatever they'd found hadn't left this tunnel. I stuffed the journal page into my pocket and kept going, my pulse drumming in my ears. The silence pressed tighter now, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. When I finally made it home that night, hands still shaking, I searched. Hours on my laptop, diving through every corner of the internet, desperate to know if I was losing my mind. And that's when I found them. Posts, forums, threads that had been buried so deep, you'd think they were scrubbed clean on purpose. Stories of tunnels in other towns. Tunnels that didn't appear on official maps. Tunnels locals whispered about but refused to enter. The details, blurred locations, redacted. Posts deleted after a few hours, but the patterns matched. Missing persons, dozens. Whole groups swallowed. Names never released publicly. Theories scattered across the comments. Government acoustic experiments, where frequencies twisted the air until matter itself began to warp. Dimensional bleed. Pockets where reality rubbed raw and other places leaked through. Biological containment zones, dark whispers that these tunnels weren't natural at all, but built to trap something that couldn't be killed. I sat back in my chair, staring at the glow of the screen, skin crawling with every new post I scrolled. And yet no official reports, nothing in the newspapers, nothing archived in public records. It was as if the tunnels didn't exist. But they do. I've been inside one, and if you're listening to this, if you've ever heard about tunnels like these, comment below. Please, I need to know if this is just here, or if this thing is spreading, because there's something else I can't shake. Something that keeps clawing at the back of my mind. The deeper I walked, the harder it became to remember small details. My phone, my address, even my mum's middle name. It was like the tunnel was erasing me piece by piece. The forum posts had warned about that too. The deeper you go, the less real your memories feel. One comment read, "It doesn't eat you, it rewrites you." I closed my laptop then, heart thundering. For hours, I just sat in the dark, trying to convince myself the memories I still had were actually mine, that I hadn't already lost pieces of myself down there. But the thing is, I can't be sure, and that's the part I can't shake. When I finally gathered enough nerve to go back, I carried the journal page with me like a talisman. I didn't even notice the faint glow ahead until it flickered, like a candle flame struggling in the wind. I froze. Flashlight beam wavering on the walls, slick with condensation. Signs of life, flickering light, and for one insane second, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was the way out. The tunnel finally widened, not into freedom, but into something far worse. The air shifted, no longer damp and stale, but alive, buzzing with a faint vibration that thrummed in my bones. When my flashlight beam cut through the dark, it didn't hit stone. It hit space. I staggered forward, breath catching in my throat. A cavern stretched before me, vast, cathedral-like, its walls pulsing faintly as if they were breathing. At first, I thought I'd found some strange, natural wonder. The glow wasn't from torches or bulbs, but from veins in the rock itself, faintly green and trembling, like phosphorescent bloodlines. Then I saw them, dot figures. Dozens of them, they stood scattered across the cavern floor, half hidden in the glowing mist. Some hunched, some upright, some twitching with subtle spasms. They weren't shadows exactly, but they weren't fully human either. Their outlines looked sketched wrong to many joints in their arms, too much weight in their heads, as though someone had tried to redraw humanity from memory and failed. I froze. My light swept over them, and one by one, their heads turned. Not fast, not sudden. Just a slow, impossible tilt, like gravity was pulling their necks sideways. And then came the whispers. Not one voice, not 10, but 100 layered murmurs, all overlapping, all backwards. Words I couldn't make out, just the rhythm of speech played in reverse, thick and liquid, slithering into my ears. I wanted to run. I should have run. But my eyes caught on the things they held. One clutched a child's sneaker, mud still caked to the sole. Another dragged the frame of a rusted bicycle. A third carried a cell phone, the cracked screen still glowing faintly, though there was no signal this far underground. I recognized some of it. A pink backpack I'd seen in a missing persons flyer. A leather jacket like the one my neighbor's cousin wore before she vanished last summer. Every missing person tied to this tunnel, their belongings were here. My stomach turned ice cold. I stumbled back, but the cavern shifted with me. The glow dimmed, the air thickened, and the almost people moved. Not toward me yet, just shuffling, swaying, their limbs bending as though their bones were wet clay. I whispered without meaning to. "What are you?" One stopped. It stood straighter than the rest, head jerking as if hearing me. Then, in one fluid, grotesque motion, it turned, and I saw its face. My flashlight quivered in my grip, the beam dancing across pale skin, hollow sockets where eyes should have been, and a mouth stretched too wide. But the shape beneath the distortion was undeniable. It was me, my nose, my jawline, my crooked tooth on the right side. But wrong. Wrong in ways my brain refused to process. It whispered my name. Backwards, my legs finally remembered what to do. I bolted, lungs tearing open, my footsteps echoing like gunshots. The whispers rose behind me, dozens of voices, dozens of almost MAs, their sound building like a storm. The cavern's glow flickered and dimmed, as if the place itself didn't want me to leave. My own breath became part of the echo, distorted, trailing me. I didn't dare look back, but I swear I could feel my own face watching me. I ran blind. My flashlight beam jerked across the stone, throwing mad shadows that looked like hands reaching for me. The cavern was gone behind me, swallowed by whispers, but the air carried them forward, chasing me through the dark. The tunnel should have led back the way I came. I'd mapped every step in my head, counted them even, but when I turned the first corner, the path didn't look right. The walls narrowed, twisted, sloping down where they should have gone up. "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. "This isn't it. This isn't where I came from." The ground beneath me trembled, almost like the tunnel itself was breathing. Each inhale pulled the air thinner, each exhale pressed the damp walls closer. My lungs screamed for oxygen. I clawed at the wet stone, leaving bloody streaks where my fingernails tore. That's when I heard it. "Hey." I froze. My friend's voice, the one who'd dared me to go in. His tone was casual, like nothing was wrong, like he was leaning against the tunnel entrance, waiting for me. "Come on, man. It's not that bad. Just turn left." Relief surged through me. I knew that voice. I'd know it anywhere. I spun toward it, flashlight trembling. But something was wrong. The voice didn't echo. In a tunnel this tight, sound should have bounced, doubled, warped. This was clean. Too clean. Like it wasn't traveling through air at all. And when it called again, the syllables dragged too long, vowels stretching until they bled into static. Lee-I-eefed. I backed away, flashlight beam shaking. My breath came ragged, the metallic temps of blood sharp in my throat. My chest heaved, but there was no air, only heat, thick and moist, like the inside of an animal's lungs. The walls pulsed. I swear I saw them expand. Stone bulged outward, then shrank, droplets of condensation running like sweat. The sound of breathing surrounded me, deep, steady, inhuman. That was when the realization hit. The tunnel wasn't a tunnel. It wasn't carved or built. It was alive, and I was inside it. I stumbled, panic boiling, into a scream that scraped my throat raw. My flashlight flickered, then steadied on a jagged crack in the wall. A way out. I scrambled forward, hope clawing at me, but the crack sealed itself with a wet shudder before I reached it. I slammed my fists against the stone. Useless, my voice breaking. Let me out. The whispers returned, closer now, threading through the walls, layered with the false voice of my friend. They spoke in unison, backwards and forwards, at once. A chorus that vibrated inside my skull. I finally understood the warnings. They never said the tunnel would trap you. They said it kept something else in. And now the walls were closing, folding, erasing every exit I thought I remembered. The ground shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. My flashlight beam caught jagged edges breaking free above me. A low rumble rolled through the darkness, deeper than thunder, older than language. The tunnel was collapsing. I screamed, sprinting forward, but every path twisted back into itself. Stone cracked and groaned. The floor dropped an inch, then another. The whole passage shuddering like a throat about to swallow. My last thought, before the ceiling split, was a desperate prayer that maybe, just maybe, I'd wake up outside in the daylight. But the tunnel inhaled long, deep, final, and everything began to cave in. The collapse didn't kill me, at least not in the way I expected. When the dust cleared and the rumble faded, I was still there, bruised, choking on grit, but alive. My flashlight was dead, but the tunnel wasn't dark anymore. That sickly glow I'd seen in the cavern seeped through the cracks, pulsing faintly, as if the walls themselves carried veins of light. And then I saw them, not charging, not clawing, not trying to tear me apart. Just watching. Their bodies were half shadow, half flesh, stitched together wrong, but they didn't lunge. They waited, patient, deliberate. It hit me then. This wasn't a hunt. This was a harvest. The thing wearing my friend's voice, it hadn't been luring me to kill me. It was guiding me, lining me up, like a farmer coaxing a sheep through the gate. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The figures didn't follow. They only tilted their heads in perfect sync, like they were studying me, like they were checking to see if I was done. And that's when I understood. They weren't replacing the tunnel. They were replacing us. That friend I thought I saw earlier, the one who smiled with teeth that didn't belong to him, wasn't a monster wearing his face. It was him now, changed, sent back into the world, looking, sounding, moving almost the same. Almost the missing kids, the neighbors, the whispers of people who walked in and never returned. They had returned, just not as themselves. And nobody ever questioned it, because who looks too closely at the familiar? I thought of the pets, the dogs pulling at their leashes, cats hissing at the tunnel mouth, refusing to go near. They knew, they always knew. Turns out man's best friend was smarter than man himself. I laughed then, short, broken, ugly. The kind of laugh that tastes like blood in your mouth. Because what else do you do when you realize your whole life might already be crawling with copies? Maybe even the people I trusted most weren't people anymore. The figures didn't move as I slid down the wall, back scraping damp stone. They didn't need to. My choices were gone. Either I walked out, carrying their infection in my bones, or I stayed here and starved inside their living maze. And maybe that was the point. It wasn't about killing me. It was about convincing me to surrender, to let go of who I was and walk back out as one of them. I closed my eyes, breath shallow, and whispered to myself, if I walk out of here alive, I won't really be me. If you see me outside the tunnel tomorrow, don't believe it's me. I'm writing this against the damp wall, my phone's battery circling the drain. My hands are shaking, not just from fear, but from the way the stone itself hums. Every surface in here vibrates, like a low animal growl pressed against my bones. The shadows have grown patient, standing just beyond the reach of this dying glow. I know they're waiting. I know they'll take me soon. I should have listened. When the old men on the corner muttered, "Don't go in," I should have laughed it off and stayed home. When the dogs barked at the entrance, I should have taken it as gospel. When my friends teased me, I should have swallowed my pride, but I didn't. And now I'm the one leaving this record not to warn, because warnings mean nothing when curiosity is louder than fear. But as a kind of last testament, they don't kill you. That's the part everyone gets wrong. They become you. I've seen their faces. My face. The subtle twitches, the almost smiles, the perfect mimicry that falls apart only if you're close enough to smell the rot. And if you are close enough, it's already too late. I keep thinking about the town above, the kids riding bikes past the corner store, parents mowing lawns. The tunnel was just another shortcut, a piece of suburban concrete no one paid much attention to. Ordinary, boring, safe. Except it wasn't. It never was. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being a tunnel and became a gateway. To what? I don't know. Another dimension, some hungry intelligence that wears us like masks. All I know is that home isn't home anymore once one of us steps inside. I hear them now, their voices brushing against my ears like moth wings. Sometimes they whisper my name. Sometimes they whisper things I haven't said yet, things I will say. It's like they're pulling the words straight out of me before I even speak them. That's how I know if you hear this. If you're listening or reading somewhere far away, there's no guarantee it's still me talking. Maybe I already slipped. Maybe this is just the copy, delivering the story, planting the seeds so you'll come looking for your own answers. So let me say this while I still feel human. If you've got a tunnel near your town, for God's sake, stay out of it. Don't test it. Don't prove how brave you are. Curiosity is the rope they use to drag you under. And if you've ever heard voices in the dark, comment below. Tell me, I need to know how far this has spread. My phone flickers. The shadows lean closer. Their shapes bend like smoke, reaching, patient. One of them just stepped into the light, and it looks exactly like me. Exactly, it's smiling. I don't know how much longer. I can keep my eyes open. Maybe this is the last line I'll write as myself. Maybe when the light goes out, I'll stand up and walk out of here wearing my own stolen face. So if you see me tomorrow, don't believe it's me.